Hi, I'm Caroline Gaskin and I've been a homeopath for over 25 years, and it feels amazing to say that I've been doing something for a quarter of a century, because when I started out, it's not that that wasn't my intention, but to be here now, to look back over that time, is really quite amazing. And we are taught to be general practitioners, so we see people from all walks of life. We're taught to prescribe from the cradle to the grave, to support all sorts of different pathologies, which surprises many people. You know, we work with musculoskeletal issues, with mental health issues, we work with hormonal health, all sorts of aspects of health. And it might be that through our careers we niche in particular areas. So I started to teach fairly soon into my career. I think I was 3 years into my practice and I started to teach, and then around 5 years into my practice I started to work with the Narayani remedies, which some of you might have heard of. These are a lovely group of combination remedies, and I also started to work with a bioresonance program. And I'm a homeopath who works just as a homeopath, so that whether that's teaching or seeing my clients one-to-one, it is my job. I don't have another job that I do part-time or nearly full-time. I am a homeopath working every day and prescribing, as I say, for people from all walks of life. And I started to realize that I was saying the same thing over and over to my clients, and so I started to do courses, and particularly workshops, so courses in first aid and workshops in things like detox your life and balancing your hormones, where I could talk about the things that we need to do alongside homeopathy: nutrition, lifestyle, dietary advice, etc. That was a commonality, you know, so where I was saying the same thing for a skin condition, for instance, it made sense to start to do information in some way that delivers to more than just one person at a time. So about 10 years ago, I started to do my own workshops, and as I say, detox your life, balancing your hormones. And because I was going through menopause, I started my Managing Menopause Naturally series as well. And I teach at most of the major UK colleges, or I have taught at them over the years. And at the moment, I mainly teach for the Centre for Homeopathic Education based here in the UK. We've got courses online as well. And that's sort of naturally grown into teaching more internationally, both in person and online. So, you know, I love both sides of my work: teaching, educating, sharing health information, and supporting clients on their own journeys and transitioning. You know, that's very much what we work with. So many women come into homeopathy and natural health complementary therapy for the first time in their lives when they're going through a period of hormonal transition, and there isn't a solution within mainstream medicine. So whether that's puberty, pregnancy particularly, that's an area where women often come into natural health, and latterly menopause. So, you know, yes or no to HRT, or can homeopathy or some other complementary therapy support us during the menopausal change, even if we have chosen HRT and it hasn't fixed everything? Can a natural solution be used alongside? And the answer is always yes, from my perspective. I love helping people to achieve their optimum health, and to understand that if you are on some mainstream medicine, you will need to add in some nutrition, some diet, some lifestyle things alongside that to mitigate the things that nutrition steals from us or takes out of the system for us. So, you know, these days we're up against a lot of environmental factors that affect our health. And to give you an example, you know, that just came to me today when I was talking to somebody who was asking questions about a client who was living in a new climate, and it was really affecting their health. I had a family years ago who came to me with a boy who's 8 years old, and he was suffering from allergies, and they were particularly bad when they went to their family home in the Middle East. And so we looked at the environment in the Middle East and how that was different to the environment in London. What was affecting him in London? What was affecting him in the Middle East? Were they the same? And one of the things that really helped improve his health, for instance, was cleaning the air conditioning. So while my remedies were doing great work, they were only going to make so much of an impact because there was something going on all the time in the Middle East which was affecting his health. And while my remedies could help him come into a stronger place in terms of his health so that he was more resilient, more resistant to those kind of environmental factors affecting him, nevertheless, getting those out of his life made a massive difference. So it's often a jigsaw puzzle. It's a journey. Nothing's going to be fixed in one day, or occasionally it is, and that's amazing. And it might be that a client comes in for a skin condition and we give remedies and it improves, and I say, well, what next? Is there anything else that's bothering you? And if there isn't, you know where to find me when you need me. Or let's tackle those things that are always also bothering you alongside whatever it was that you first came in with. So what to expect from a session with a homeopath? You spend a lot of time together. So that first session is likely to be an hour, and you're going to be talking about your whole life's health or disease and how you arrived at that place. And homeopaths are looking for what we call the causation, the point at which things began to change, at which you began to experience a downturn in your health, your energy, your focus, whatever it is that's troubling you. And so it may be that something like a loss or financial misfortune was the causation for the downturn in your health. You know, so 2008, when we had the financial crash, I had all sorts of bankers coming in to see me, people who were worried about their assets, people who suddenly found themselves short of breath, unable to sleep at night because their finance was going to be affected. So that was the causation. Whereas somebody else might have gone through a more personal relationship trauma, and that's a grief or a loss of some sort, and that's been the point at which things have begun to change for them. So homeopaths are like detectives. We're looking for all the pieces of the puzzle that make up you, and we're helping you find the missing pieces, put the pieces back in the right place, etc. So it can be a wonderful journey together. It might be something that you engage with for the whole of the rest of your life, or it might be something that you engage with for a short period of time just to get something fixed. And it can be, you know, I like to be with homeopathy in terms of making deep, sustained change in myself. You know, and when I first came into homeopathy, it was through my children, like many women. And I was taking my son to see the homeopath, and the homeopath said to me, I think you need to come and see me. Because basically what I was suffering from as a young mum was an identity crisis. I didn't know myself as Caroline anymore. I was a mum and I couldn't do anything without thinking about somebody else before leaving. And so leaving the house, for instance. So suddenly I was no longer autonomous, and that was affecting me. And she gave me a remedy that I always say got to the bottom of the barrel when it came to knowing Caroline Gaskin, and made me look at myself, look at where I'd come from, look at parenting. How was I parenting? How were we parenting? Did we want to parent in the same way as our parents had? You know, were things changing for us as a result of having a child? You know, so these kind of things are wonderful to work with. And you know, the training is fascinating. Learning to study or being in study as a homeopath, learning to be a homeopath is an amazing process. So, you know, another aspect of my work is to support the students through supervision, through their growth into becoming homeopaths and into securing a future for an amazing system of medicine that really is about transformation, is about being able to weather the storms of life without so much agitation, without so much stress. So that's a little bit about me. Hope that helps to kind of, get to know what it's about, get a little vignette into homeopathy and what it might be like to see a practitioner.